One true thing about professional wrestling, kids love it. They're a target audience. Now, we'd like to repeat our parental warning because of the material in our next report. What is the message that kids get from pro wrestling? WCW is criticized for its violence and gang imagery, but they claim to draw the line at profanity and explicit sex. The WWF TV Guide noted that its corporate logo could well be the upraised middle finger. Their controversial Super Bowl commercial spoofed the criticism of its violence and sex while, of course, showing both. Not all of this is intended for kids, but they do see it, and Mark Schwartz reports that is a growing concern.
Oh my gosh!
They simulate sex.
Whoa!
They flash flesh.
Oh my God!
They flip the bird.
Oh my!
They draw blood, then drink it. And they throw in an occasional human sacrifice. These are signs of the times.
Oh, let's get ready to suck it! Suck it!
Suck it!
13-year-old Corey Fear can't get enough WWF attitude. This is regular after-school activity in his Southern California backyard. It may not have all the flash and trash of a live event, but it has enough plywood and sheet metal to maintain the attitude.
Suck it!
Corey has been suspended from school 3 times as a result of aggressive behavior, including inappropriate sexual gestures and language. Most recently, after he pointed toward his crotch and yelled, "Suck it," at a female classmate.
So when you say suck it, what are you telling somebody?
It's just a gesture. I mean, it's not like I'm not saying, get your head down there and suck it.
He's not the only one out there. His friends, people you see, you hear them in the stores, everywhere you go. So it's not just him singling out doing it.
So we got a generation of kids yelling suck it.
Yes.
What did you get in trouble for? What were you doing?
Suck it.
What is that?
My private part.
Thaddeus Simmons goes to kindergarten near Memphis, Tennessee. He was punished for using WWF language. 4 6th graders at the same school were suspended for acting out violent scenes they saw performed by WWF wrestlers.
When I ask them, where do you pick this up? And they say, oh, Miss Allen, they do it on the wrestling program. Don't you watch the wrestling?
How you doing, books?
Dr. Brian O'Connell, an elementary school principal near Buffalo, New York, was so outraged about students using sexual gestures and vulgar language that he attributes to the WWF, he alerted parents that the crass and violent behavior would no longer be tolerated.
Aren't these guys making too much of this? Isn't this just like a comic book or a cartoon?
No, because I'm petrified that someday the school's going to call me during recess and say some other child put my kid in a headlock and broke his neck.
It's a monster, is really what it is. It's a nationwide monster. It's got to be stopped.
The principal is entitled to his opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
WWF Chairman Vince McMahon, who created Raw is War, cable TV's top-rated series, uses words like conservative and tame to describe his programming, which until February was rated TV PG. Parental guidance suggested. McMahon felt a change to the slightly more cautionary TV-14 was appropriate, especially given the explicit storylines most often seen after 10 o'clock Monday nights.
How bad is it? How bad can it be? My God, they say a few colorful words, a few expletives. Oh my God, they flipped the finger. How bad is it compared to everything else that's out there on television today? When did you last watch, afternoon soap opera? Oh my God. Compared to afternoon soap opera, we're Sunday school teachers.
If Vince McMahon wants to argue that, well, why are you beating up on me? And this isn't soap opera. Soap operas are a problem, and 10 o'clock program is a problem. Well, kids aren't coming to school discussing NYPD Blue, and they're not coming to school talking about latest storyline of General Hospital and Guiding Light.
Last I looked, no one's guts were spilling out having been shot, on a WWF set or knifed or anything like that. There is no murder. There is no portrayal of murder.
But there has been this.
And all we can speculate is that Kaientai got the job done.
I actually think when Val Venus was castrated, it was a low point for the show, and I think that the viewers made their feelings known.
Oh my God, they do castration! No. You didn't see castration. You didn't see a damn thing.
Feel good. Oh.
And there has been portrayal of oral sex by a transvestite who dupes a character known as Sexual Chocolate.
You can go around here to the front. Yeah, baby. Oh, sweet Jesus!
What's
You got a penis!
What's wrong, baby? They didn't tell anybody? That's why they call me Sammy, baby. It's gonna be okay, honey. You'll be okay.
I'm sorry. I find that comedic.
I see really...
A 9-year-old boy watching without parental supervision
really
did
cute
not
parts
see it
in
as
those
comedy
things
at all.
As in, sometimes they actually make a girl into a man into a girl, and then they switch that around with a man, and then they sort of mate together, and then that is really sick parts, and that's when my dad saw it, and then he told me to never watch it again.
Was that appropriate for a 9-year-old to see? I don't think so.
You say no?
I don't think so. No way. No, I don't think so. Even though, again, it wasn't really explicit as compared to some of the other stuff on television.
McMahon never said his product was for everyone. What he did say is that parents should be responsible for monitoring what their children watch.
We wholeheartedly would want parents and everyone to be able to exercise their freedom of choice. Click. That's not for me.
Yes, I control what my children are watching, but I can't control what happens in school. Other parents let their children watch this stuff. They turn around, tell my son. I walk down a toy aisle in our department store, and it's plastered all over the place.
Action figures, dolls. These aren't being bought by and enjoyed by adults. These are for 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds.
Perhaps no one has been more critical of McMahon than New York Post and TV Guide columnist Phil Mushnick.
T-shirts with vulgar expressions written on them. These are being worn and purchased by kids or by adults for kids. The WWF would cease to exist without children.
Raw is War, the WWF program with the most mature content, is seen Mondays in primetime, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on USA Network. McMahon argues that 70% of that audience is at least 18. He invites younger viewers to tune into the WWF's weekend morning shows. However, those shows feature excerpts from primetime and encourage viewers to watch Monday night. Over the last year, the 2 to 17-year-old audience for Raw is War has more than doubled. Ads targeting this younger demographic, selling video games, toys, even talking watches, are seen regularly on Monday night.
We market to children. We'll market to that 15%. We'll market to the 15%, which is the teenage complement. We'll market to the other 70%, which are 18 and above.
McMahon insists his audience gets it, that his wrestlers are in fact actors, and he doesn't buy the argument that his younger viewers can't distinguish fiction from reality.
Let's give the younger complement a little bit of credit in terms of what's real and what isn't. Of course they know that we're entertainers.
I think it's real.
Why?
'Cause it's all blood and stuff.
They think it's real.
You have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yes, I do.
They think
Two
it's real?
boys. They think it's real. We've told them that it's all fake. And they'll come right out and they'll say, well, not all of it's fake.
Damn it is America. Go live in your world. Don't like us. Click us off. Don't watch us.
McMahon's not worried about losing viewers. He has clearly tapped a powerful cultural nerve. Simply listening to his audience.
The public, by the way, more than anything else, votes with their wallet, with their pocketbook. And thus far, they wholeheartedly not only accept but embrace what we're giving them.
This may be high camp theater, but a number of wrestling stars did have traditional athletic careers. Bill Goldberg first made his name as a defensive tackle at the University of Georgia and then the Atlanta Falcons. Before Kevin Nash was Big Sexy, he was the Tennessee Volunteers center. The Macho Man came from baseball. Randy Savage was a minor league catcher for the Reds, Cardinals, and White Sox. And Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, played defensive tackle for the Miami Hurricanes. But does that qualify pro wrestlers as athletes? We asked a future Hall of Famer who once stepped through the ropes himself.
When you see the guys take the bumps and the falls that they take, it's no doubt in my mind they're a great athlete.
And they bring to their profession not just traditional athletic skills, speed, agility, and strength, but the ability to play a part, to sell their role, and do so like a Hollywood stuntman.
It's a very physical sport. It's entertainment at its best, but at the same time, sometimes you're expected to jump out of the grandstands into a Dixie cup, without water.
The risks that our guys take night in, night out, and the way that they don't kill themselves, that's athletic.
All pro wrestlers know pain, but even they marvel at Mick Foley's ability to play hurt. Foley is a legend for his pain threshold, which he says surpasses that shown in one of sport's epic moments.
I grew up with a memory of Willis Reed, 1970, championships, limping onto the court as a portrait in courage. And I can honestly say, in all seriousness, that the things I've seen and the things I've done would put Willis Reed to shame as far as playing with pain. I defy any other athlete to play with the type of injuries that we've had.
This can be a painful and violent existence. Ahead, we'll see if the lifestyle in and around the ring leads to premature deaths for an uncommon number of pro wrestlers. And next, whether pro wrestling is serious about ridding itself of steroids. Wayne Coleman wrestled as superstar Billy Graham. His ring career brought fame in the 70s and many health complications ever since. He recently underwent a 9th hip replacement surgery. He suffers from near constant pain. Pain, he told ESPN 5 years ago, that stems from his abuse of steroids.
If I had any way to redo it, I would have never touched a steroid. I have to live the rest of my life now in pain and suffering, and a lot of it.
The complications from steroid abuse are by now familiar. Everything from liver to reproductive to heart problems. WWF Chairman Vince McMahon was acquitted 4 years ago of federal steroid trafficking charges. In pro wrestling, where bigger is always better, how prevalent is steroid use today? Jeremy Schaap tells us there are profound doubts this industry is serious about policing the illegal use of these drugs.
Portland, Oregon's the 23rd largest television market in the United States. It's the only market in the top 34 that neither World Championship Wrestling nor the World Wrestling Federation has visited in the last 6 years.
And quite frankly, we would love to play Portland, Oregon. We would love to. It's a wonderful market.
A wonderful market in the state with the nation's most stringent drug testing procedures for pro wrestling.
Other states have testing procedures and so forth that we have to abide by. We don't have a problem with any of it. It's just that Oregon is so different than all the rest of them.
In April of last year, McMahon's rival organization, WCW, considered staging a show in Portland, according to the recently retired director of the Oregon Boxing and Wrestling Commission. He told ESPN that 12 days after his office forwarded its drug testing laws to WCW, WCW said it would not come to Oregon.
Why did you pull out?
I have no idea.
Aren't you in charge?
Out of everything. I can't tell you,
No recollection?
No, I really don't remember.
An official with the Rose Garden in Portland told ESPN that the WCW and WWF have made clear their displeasure over the Oregon drug testing laws for pro wrestling. Rose Garden officials are backing a proposed amendment to relax those rules. The state Senate is expected to decide on that amendment by July. Anyone who followed pro wrestling in the 1970s, 80s, and early 90s remembers wrestling's history of admitted steroid abuse. Its two most visible figures, Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon, both testified in a federal trial that they'd used steroids when they were legal. Back then, Hogan and McMahon were far from alone.
When I first joined the WWF, I experimented with steroids, I think, as much as it was almost you almost had to.
Using steroids for non-medical reasons became illegal in 1991. That year, a doctor assigned to WWF shows in Pennsylvania was convicted of distributing steroids to wrestlers. McMahon promised to clean up the WWF, saying the Federation's steroid abuse policy would be, quote, the gold standard. But the WWF's own wrestlers admit that has now changed.
There was a time when it was the most stringent testing of any sport or performance. Now they tend to test people that they believe may have a problem.
McMahon says the WWF tests for steroids when there's reasonable cause. His definition of reasonable cause?
If I see someone with a syringe hanging around, or whatever the case may be, I think that's reasonable cause. We establish the same procedures as anyone else that does any type of drug testing. By the way, is there steroid testing in baseball? I don't think so. Is baseball a sport? Son of a gun. Oh, professional hockey? There's got to be steroid. Oh, I guess not.
Major League Baseball and the NHL don't test for steroids, but the NBA and NFL do. WCW's standard contract also includes an anti-drug clause. It prohibits the use of illegal drugs and steroids.
Gosh, well, certainly we test for steroids because that's the thing that we're, this is more of a public relations initiative on our part because we know the sensitivity that's out there.
When you say it's more of a public relations initiative, do you mean that you're not as serious about this as
No,
you
I'm
have us believe?
No, I'm very serious about it. But we're also not dumb. We know that if one of our guys, if one of our wrestlers has been abusing drugs, has been abusing steroids, they can have a horribly negative effect, not only on the individual, but certainly on this company.
One thing drug testing cannot be is a PR event.
Dr. Gary Wadler is a leading authority on steroids and their often debilitating effects on the human body. He was called by the government as an expert witness in the two major wrestling steroid trials, including McMahon's in 1994.
So the question would be, what is your program, and can we be assured it's being implemented? And then, depending on the results, actions are being taken.
According to the WCW's contract, steroids are banned, but some wrestlers still use them.
I never said there wasn't abuse. I would never said there wasn't use. There have been people who have used steroids. There have been people who have been found on a regular basis to have been using steroids vis-a-vis our drug testing policy. And they are counseled accordingly, and they have adhered to our policy. So, yes, it does exist. That's why we continue to test for it.
How many wrestlers do you have under contract?
Probably in the neighborhood of about 80, 90.
How many have tested positive for steroids?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't know off the top
Approximation?
of my head. I couldn't begin to tell you. I wouldn't know.
A quarter? Third?
It's possible. At some point in time during the relationship with us, 10%, 15% is possible.
To be suspended, a WCW wrestler must test positive on 3 separate occasions. After an initial test at the time their contracts are signed, wrestlers are tested randomly. But there's no guarantee a wrestler will be tested even once a year. Bischoff says 6 wrestlers have been suspended for abusing steroids in the last 3 years. From his heyday in the 80s, Hulk Hogan says he's down 70 pounds and now steroid-free, but that some of his fellow wrestlers are not.
I don't think it'll ever go away completely as long as there's a competitive nature in any type of physicality and there's a competitive edge to be gained. I think whether it's legal or illegal, some people will cross that line or step up to that line to gain that advantage.
Most wrestlers say that whatever edge they do possess is the product of genetics and hard work.
Until you're in the gym 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, watching your carbs, watching your protein year-round for 15 years. After you do that, if you want to say I'm on steroids, then you can. But until you try that, don't say it.
But when Buff Bagwell and his partner, Scott Steiner, display their muscles, many fans do say it. Despite the jeers, Big Papa Pump, as Steiner calls himself, takes immense pride in the physique he says he's developed naturally.
I mean, look at that arm. Have you ever seen an arm like that before? Seriously. Is that the largest arm in the world?
If you have genetics and you train hard and you eat properly, I mean, you can pretty much get a decent enough physique without it, or a good physique, or whatever. I mean, steroids isn't the question anymore, really. I mean,
even if guys are using it?
Why should it matter?
We don't perceive as well that the audience cares, because they don't, in my view. I think they care about illegal drug use, generally speaking, but I think law enforcement takes care of that. I think the courts take care of that. I'm not going to be the policeman of society much less the World Wrestling Federation.
This may not be a sport, but do any athletes in any sport work as hard as pro wrestlers? They have no off-season. In fact, the men and women who fly off of these turnbuckles and slam into the canvas do it, some of them, more than 200 nights a year, and each time in a different city. The toll exacted on their bodies can be frightening and deadly. Kelly Neal reports.
The loose cannon, Brian Pillman.
Brian Pillman, nicknamed the Loose Cannon and Flyin' Brian, was known for his flamboyance and high-flying kicks. Handsome and athletic, he was a star in the WWF. But a year and a half ago on the road in Bloomington, Minnesota, Pillman died in this motel room in his sleep. He was 35 years old.
We tolled the bell 10 times out of respect to the late Brian Pillman.
The autopsy revealed that Pillman died of complications due to an enlarged heart. There were prescription drugs and cocaine found in his system. Cocaine also contributed to the death of 33-year-old wrestling star Eddie Gilbert 4 years ago. And last year, 5 days after his 27th birthday, Louis Mucciolo died. Friends say that night he mixed muscle relaxers with alcohol. Over the last 6 years, 11 active professional wrestlers at an average age of 36 have died. Most had performed in one of wrestling's top organizations at some point in their career.
The equivalent to 13 players in the NFL dying during the course of a year, or 6 or 7 in Major League Baseball, 6 in the NHL, maybe 3 in the NBA. It'd be like that. That's the equivalent in other sports. And I think if there were 13 guys dying every season, active players dying every season in the NFL, I think people would go, oh my God, there's a real problem here.
Why are so many active wrestlers dying? One theory is some wrestlers abuse of prescription drugs, including painkillers, steroids, and human growth hormone. Those substances rarely show up in a coroner's report, so in many instances, there's no definitive cause of death. Family and friends are left to wonder if those wrestlers' dependence on prescription drugs to perform through injuries contributed to their death. Vince McMahon interviewed Brian Pillman's widow, Melanie, on his Monday night telecast, the night after her husband died.
Is there anything that you would want to say to aspiring athletes who do get hurt and have to resort to prescribed medication, painkillers?
I think all athletes, to a degree, experience a reliance on pain medicine, and I knew it was just a matter of time before it happened to someone, and fortunately it was my husband.
He had this habit of going to all different pharmacies and having the doctors call different pharmacies as opposed to one, because they would report him, So there's probably about 30 or 40 in the Cincinnati area that he would go to get his pain medicines, because he didn't want anyone, Walgreens or whatever, wherever he was going, to think that he was a drug addict.
Friends of Brian Pillman say that pro wrestling does not have a widespread abuse problem with prescription painkillers.
I don't see anybody that has that problem right now, but sooner or later it'll come up again. It always does.
I honestly don't feel that there's any more of a problem here than there is anywhere else.
In any other segment of society or in any other sport?
Any other sport.
Louis Mucciolo, known to wrestling fans as Louis Spicolli, was with the WCW when he died last year. Friends say he was addicted to Soma, a muscle relaxer, and averaged up to 50 pills a night the last 2.5 years of his life. That's more than 12 times the recommended daily dose. Soma is sold over the counter in Mexico. Mucciolo's sister Tina says her brother would make the 2-hour trip from his house in California to Tijuana to pick up supplies for himself and other wrestlers.
How did you know that other wrestlers had placed orders with him?
She would say so, or, I have to go to Tijuana before I leave to go on the plane tomorrow. Something I got to pick up for a friend before I go see the friend.
A friend being another wrestler?
Yeah.
Rob Van Dam knew Mucciolo when they both wrestled for Extreme Championship Wrestling. He was a pallbearer at Mucciolo's funeral. Van Dam says he flushed his supply of Soma down the toilet when he learned of Mucciolo's death.
I don't know if I was pushing towards death, if I was gonna be the next one to die. I mean, I can't say. It definitely made me aware of what track I was on so that I could see clearly. I totally reevaluated everything in life.
To me, just knowing that it may have saved one life is enough.
Mucciolo's life was not saved by Brian Pillman's death 4 months earlier. Pillman's death from complications due to an enlarged heart was not necessarily caused by his abuse of prescription pain medications. There may have been another factor. Melanie Pillman says her husband had been injecting human growth hormone and a half in order to increase his size and strength for wrestling.
There's no question the growth hormone can enlarge the heart, and so we can't absolutely say for sure why this combination led to his death, other than if you take all the elements, it certainly would have to be considered as a contributory factor.
Receipts show that Pillman obtained human growth hormone, known as HGH, from the Palm Springs Life Extension Institute. Doctors at the institute advocate use of the hormone to reverse the aging process. It's illegal to prescribe HGH unless it's for the treatment of a disease or medical condition. The Food and Drug Administration has seized the institute's medical records and is conducting an ongoing investigation. Melanie Pillman says it was Hulk Hogan who told Brian he could obtain HGH from Dr. Edmund Chen at the Life Extension Institute. And a former wrestler who wished to remain anonymous says Hogan recommended Chen to many wrestlers. Through a spokesman, Hogan says he's never heard of Chen, and Chen says he does not prescribe the hormone to athletes and has never knowingly treated any wrestler. He refused further comment.
I love you. Little Brian.
This is Brian Pillman's legacy. Little Brian was 4 years old when his father passed away.
He talks about him sometimes. He'll say, remember when my old dad, Flying Brian, and I went here or there, and I'll try to reinforce those memories.
Young Brian has a trophy case in his bedroom filled with his father's mementos. He wants to be a professional wrestler when he grows up. Melanie doesn't want that. She blames the wrestling lifestyle, in part, for her husband's death.
I mean, I could sit here and name names of who it could have been, but it just was Brian Pillman. And sadly enough, and I don't want it to be anyone else. I don't want anyone else to have to go through what I went through.